Good evening, and welcome to Viterbo University and the 9th annual Holocaust Survivor Lecture. We're going to start this evening's event with something a little bit different. We have a group of students from Cipora High School who have been rehearsing a choral reading. The title is "I Never Saw Another Butterfly." So, students from Cipora High School.
Look really hard.
Do you see it? The beauty of this world? Do you see it? Reach for it and never let it go.
Terezin was an emperor's utopian fortress.
A paradise that would one day both imprison and inspire thousands of children.
Children housed against their will. Children with no future to speak of.
Who, somehow, would find a small piece of normalcy and comfort within the barbed wires of Terezin.
All that we can do is just survive. All that we can do to help ourselves is stay alive.
Line up for inspection.
March 5th, 1939, Germany enters Prague.
September 27, 1941, Reinhart Heydrich orders mass deportation of Jews and establishes Terezin as a Jewish ghetto.
October 16, 1941, first transports leave Prague for Terezin. Among them are children.
My name is Raja.
And mine is Alina.
We were born in Prague.
Father, mother, Pavel, Eva, and Mariana are all gone. But their spirits live on. Through you and me. Here is their story.
All that we can do is just survive. All that we can do to help ourselves is stay alive. When new children come to the camp, everything seems so strange.
What? On the ground I have to lie?
Eat black potatoes.
No, not I.
I've got to stay.
But it's yucky here. The floor, why, look, it's dirt I fear.
For weeks we've been in here, living our lives of fear. We've been frightened and alone, ready to face a fate already known. Here in Terezin, life is hell!
And when we'll go home again?
We just can't tell.
I've lived here for more than a year. In Terezin, in the Black Town now. And when I remember my old home so dear, I can love it more than I did somehow.
Home. Why did they tear me away? Here, the weak die easy as a feather. And when they die forever.
I know this place isn't perfect, but you should try to get some sleep. We don't have much time to rest.
Dear God, can you hear the prayer of the children on bended knee in the shadow of an unknown room? Empty eyes with no more tears to cry, turning toward the light, crying, who will help me to see the morning light of one more day?
This place isn't as bad as you think. We have found a bit of happiness here. A world full of small promises, but promises nonetheless. A world full of brilliant flowers and flitting, lively insects. Only once here, we never saw another butterfly. That butterfly was the last one.
Butterflies don't live in here, in the ghetto.
All that we can do is just survive. All that we can do to help ourselves is stay alive. Ragged line of ragged gray, skeletons they shuffle away. Shouting guards and smoking guns, we will cut down the unlucky ones. We are an assembly of misery. If our hands are bloody, it is from the blood of our own wounds. The grotesque scars we bear on our bodies
Testified to battles fought that went unrecognized.
Can you hear the voice of the children softly pleading for silence in their shattered world? Angry guns preach a gospel full of hate, blood of the innocent on their hands. Today, a father's heartbeat tells us right, and mothers bend their heads into their hands. Now children choke and die with typhus here. A bitter tax is taken from their bands.
My heart still beats inside my breast.
While friends depart for other worlds. Perhaps it's better, who can say, than watching this, to die today. I don't know if you can hear me, or if you're even there. I don't know if you should listen to a childhood prayer. Yes, I know I'm just an outcast. I shouldn't speak to you. Still I see your face and wonder, were you once an outcast too? God help the outcasts, hungry from birth. Show them the mercy they don't find on earth. God help my people, we look to you still. God help the outcasts, for nobody will. My God, we want to live, not watch our numbers melt away. We must stay positive, think of the beauty. Trees flower forth, so lovely that my body aches. Above, the heavens shriek with blue, convinced I've smiled by some mistake. But the world's a bloom and seems to smile. I want to fly, but where? How high? If in barbed wire things can bloom, why can't I? I will not die.
Why not?
I hear the sound of gunfire at the prison gate. Are the liberators here? Do I hope or do I fear? For my father and my brother, it's too late. All that we can do is just survive. All that we can do to help ourselves is stay alive. Listen, the whistle has sounded now. And we must sail out toward an unknown port. We'll sail a long, long way, and dreams will turn to truth.
Orders just arrived. We are to be deported to Auschwitz.
It's goodbye.
Our time has come.
Goodbye. It was the motto of Terezin.
It should have been written over the entrance instead of the lie that greeted us.
Work makes us free.
It was goodbye, not work, that made us free.
It was the only thing we knew would never change.
Goodbye.
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 It freed us all. What was there to fear when we had said goodbye to everyone we ever loved?
Children who entered the Terezin ghetto, only 100 lived to return. Raja and Alina were two of them. But they did not survive on their own. They had many others who helped them along the way.
Today, Terezin continues to consume its tranquil surroundings.
Virtually no trace remains of those nightmarish ghetto years. The Bohemian mountains embrace the serene meadows. And the butterflies, those beautiful, peaceful butterflies, glide effortlessly to and fro, whispering their words of wisdom to all who will listen. Do listen to their words of wisdom. Bask in the uniqueness of life, they say. Remember, you are alive, able to live and give meaning to each and every moment.
Despite hardships in life, you will survive
and thrive and pass the truth of life on to others.
Look really hard.
Do you see it? The beauty of this world? Do you see it? Reach for it. Reach for it. And never let it go.
Thank you for that wonderful choral reading. And I want to let you know that we had a group of students from Decorah come last year for the workshop, and they performed this. Now, this is another group, but we asked them to come back and share it with our whole audience here today. A number of thank yous are in order for this event every year. First of all, to the Reinhart family, who have so generously funded the Ethics Institute through an endowment and have made our whole lecture series possible year after year. And I also want to thank Daryl Klott, who works tirelessly in finding Holocaust survivors each year, making contact, and persuading people to come and participate in this event. This is the 8th year that Daryl has organized and run a Holocaust Educators Workshop in conjunction with this lecture. And this year we have 52 teachers from throughout the Midwest who have come here to participate in the workshop. These are the teachers who are going to bring these lessons of tolerance and compassion back into their classrooms every day. And so please join me in thanking these teachers and for the work that they do every day. We have some special guests in our audience. Every year we have a number of instructors for this workshop. One of the instructors who has come each of the 8 years we've done this is Steve Feinberg, who is now the retired special assistant for education programs at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. And this year we also have Karen Shawn, who's professor of Jewish Studies at Yeshiva University. Please welcome the two great instructors that we have. And finally, I want to recognize another very special guest. We have John Rainier, a World War II veteran who was with the 3rd Army's 4th Armored Division on the day that Generals Eisenhower, Patton, and Bradley converged just outside of Ohrdruf, a slave labor camp that was part of the Buchenwald system. It was the first camp to be liberated, and John and his fellow soldiers did not know what they would find inside. General Eisenhower asked for any soldiers who had cameras to come forward and ask them to take pictures, not knowing what would be inside, but knowing it would be important to document. And so John had a camera, and he and his friend who shared the camera, they were among the very first soldiers to take photographs of inside of a concentration camp. Sue Hessel, a local writer, has been working with John to tell his story, and this book is just 2 weeks from being published. We were hoping that we would have it ready for you tonight. We've got some proof copies, but it's still 2 weeks away. However, there are order forms if you would like to pre-order a copy of this book. There will be order forms out in the lobby, and you can read John's story. It's just an amazing story. John, I think you're over here tonight. Please give John Rainier a big hand. And now please welcome Daryl Klott, who will introduce our speaker this evening.
Good evening. I am Daryl Klott, and I have the very best job on the face of the earth. I am a teacher, and I am proud to say that I'm a Holocaust educator. As Rick said, we have very special guests in the audience tonight who are part of our 8th Holocaust Educators Workshop. And I would like our participants and our presenters to please stand up. Teachers, participants, presenters, come on. On behalf of Viterbo, I want to thank you for the important work that you're doing in our schools by educating our young people about what happens when they do not accept other people's differences. Our schools have the responsibility to teach our students that they have the power to make a difference and not be bystanders. Many of you in our audience are familiar with the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. For the past 135 years, they have been praying around the clock, along with their local prayer partners, for prayer requests that come in from all over the world. The sisters are one of Viterbo's treasures, and I want to thank them for all their prayers these past many months to keep survivor Cipora Katz healthy so she could be with us tonight. Our survivors are always a little bit surprised when they come here and they find out that it's the sisters' prayers that have been keeping them healthy and not their doctors. I am thrilled to see so many of you here tonight because you are about to touch history. You will hear about the past from Cipora, who lived it. Ultimately, it is through remembering and reflecting that we can gain an understanding of the past and not repeat it. The age of Holocaust survivors is drawing to a close. Before long, no one will be left to say, "I was there, I saw, I remember what happened." Very shortly, Cipora will tell you her story, but I want you to know that she came very highly recommended by Sam Harris, who stood on our stage last April and spoke to us. After Sam and Dee Dee got home, they called me and they said, Daryl, you have to bring Cipora Katz to Viterbo. So Marv and I went to Chicago to meet her, and we spent about 4.5 hours with Cipora and her husband Marty and her daughter Simona, and it took about 5 minutes to know that Sam was right. We had to bring Cipora to Viterbo. She and I began planning for her visit, and in one of our phone calls, I casually mentioned our local rabbi, Simcha Prombaum, to her, and she perked up right away and she said, do you know if he's still alive and living, and does he live in the Chicago area? And I said, yes. His father is alive and lives in Chicago. And then she wanted to know how old he was and what his name was. So I called Simcha and I found out that his name is Ephraim and that soon he'll be 92 years old. It turned out that Rabbi Ephraim Prombaum married Cipora and Marty August 21st, 1960, 54 years ago this August. It is a small, small world. Another coincidence, when I gave Cipora Ephraim's phone number and she called him, he told her that she had spoken last year at the retirement home where he lives, and that he had recognized her and realized he had married her. So she said, well, why didn't you come up and talk to me? And he said, you were swarmed. There were so many people around you, I couldn't get near you. But he finished the phone conversation by saying to her, you look as good as when I married you and Marty. One last thing. Do we have any nurses or nursing students in the audience? I'm thinking we probably do. I hope so. I just want you to know that you then have something in common with Cipora, because she was in geriatric nursing for over 40 years. And now, prepare to fall in love. It is my privilege to introduce Cipora Katz.
Thank you. Can you see? Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Cipora Katz, formerly Fuchs. I was born in Semiatic, several hours from Warsaw, Poland, in 1938. Many women, you know, don't like to divulge their age, but I am so proud to do so. The fact that I can stand here before the most wonderful audience and share my painful past is a miracle, but very factual. As I heard that there are nurses in the audience, I would like to repeat that yes, I also chose for my profession to become a nurse. Although I could have been a lawyer, a doctor, a CPA, or a social worker, or even a rabbi's wife. But I chose to be a nurse to help everyone physically, emotionally, and spiritually, as well as I was helped by others to survive. I later on became a geriatric nurse, taking care of the elderly, because I didn't have the opportunity to care for my mother, father, and other elderly relatives that perished in the Holocaust in a world devoid of any human rights. Excuse me. I always felt and still feel that as God chose Moses to take the Jewish people out of Egypt, and by the way, Passover is around the corner, he chose Cipora, Moses' wife in the Bible, to be the advocate and stand up for human rights. And I am that Cipora. I want to do that. Thank you. I want to do it with a positive attitude and with hope. I wish to express my heartfelt thanks to Daryl and Marv for inviting me to your community to give my presentation of survival and meet such wonderful people that dedicate their time and tireless effort for the cause of educating others to remember the dark time of the Holocaust. I also would like to thank everyone as high above and up here, every single one, and my wonderful friend Dahlia that accompanied me to meet all of you wonderful people. I want to welcome every one of you with the word shalom. In Hebrew, shalom has multiple meaning. Hello, goodbye, complete from the word shalom, but most importantly, peace. I wish that there would be peace in everyone's heart, in everyone's home, in the whole world. Thank you. If there was peace in 1942, I would have had no information now to share with you. Shalom, you must know, is the hope. In Hebrew, we say emunah for all humanity, especially with the ongoing genocide in Darfur and other parts of the world. We cannot emphasize that enough. Hope defeats all despair, and with hope we can walk, think, and above all, dream ahead. The main reason that I will share my past with everyone is to make sure that no one ever says that the Holocaust never happened. I also want to educate everyone how to remember the past as well as recognize the good deeds done by the righteous one, how to act and prevent future discrimination, hatred, and bigotry, and the suffering it causes, regardless to one's race, religion, or sexual orientation in all ages. In order to teach, I must reach out to you and emphasize that the art of caring is an essential gift for everyone to maintain one's dignity, identity, and again, above all, hope. I feel compelled to share it with one in the audience or 1,000. Therefore, the world must know that when we say the word Dayenu, enough, or le'olam lo ot pam, never, never again, we mean it in order to prevent future Holocaust all over the world to Jews and non-Jews alike. Thank you. On a snowy morning, November 1942, my uncle Benjamin Feldman entered his home, also in Semiatic, in the ghetto that we lived already for the past 8 months. He instructed his wife, my Aunt Libby, to dress their 4 children, 8, 10, 12, and 14, in warm clothes, and assemble the extended family living nearby in the ghetto immediately to his house. When my father, Benjamin Fuchs, age 32, my mother, Shifra, age 30, my grandfather, 2 aunts, and me, Cipora, at the tender age of 4, arrived to his house, he told us that he heard from Jewish leaders in the ghetto that the situation is becoming very dangerous and we must escape immediately to save our life. He gave everyone a package of sugar cubes and told us that in time of hunger or thirst, when you put a sugar cube and it melts, it gives you quick energy since it is carbohydrate, and that might help momentarily. My mother refused to leave as she was expecting my older sister Bluma, age 7, to arrive home that same morning from visiting relatives nearby in the ghetto. But she said she knew the area in the forest and she'll follow us. My grandfather was very religious and he said he has to go to the synagogue and pray. And my 2 aunts decided they will remain in the ghetto. They know what the situation is now, but they don't know what their destiny or the goral will bring. My mother wrapped me in a blanket. Thank you, professional photographer that put it on the wall. It's marvelous. She wrapped me in a blanket, hugged and kissed me, and handed me to my father's arm. That was the last time I saw my beautiful mother alive. My father carried me through a hall cut by my uncle in the fence that surrounded the ghetto. We ran through the opening with my uncle and their 4 children deeper into the forest, the area that my uncle was very familiar with. As you all see, me, Cipora, Katz, already became the enemy of the Third Reich. Why would I run on a cold morning to save my life? We heard gunshots in the distance, but miraculously no one was hit. In the forest, we saw other families try and run, and nobody knew where they are running. After enduring the physical and emotional burden of trekking through the deep woods, my uncle on the second day began his search for a temporary place to rest our party of 8 by the trees covered with leaves. Peering in the distance, he saw a light, and being religious, he had a premonition that the light was a symbol from God to follow that light and try and get help. He decided to go alone and take a chance by doing so. He arrived to a farmhouse. In the window, he saw a woman weaving yarn. He went to the window, took a chance with his life, knocked. The woman, out of fear, stood up and crossed herself. She opened the window and asked my uncle what he wanted. He told her of our predicament, and she decided to let him into the house. While he was waiting, she called her husband into the room, and that is when the miracle started. Uncle Ben recognized the gentleman as Dr. Luczynski, a Polish veterinarian that years before, during the Russian occupation, my uncle did a good deed for them. At that time, my uncle was a manager in a flour mill, and no other managers wanted to give him flour to make bread for his own children, but my uncle did do so. And Dr. Luczynski remembered that. He also told my uncle, when it gets dark, to go back and bring the rest of the family into the farmhouse. As you see, being the Dr. Luczynski was the veterinarian, he knew when the Polish and German patrolmen make rounds in the area, so he knew to guide my uncle when to come back. When it was dark, my uncle brought us all back. Dr. and Mrs. Luczynski told his children never to divulge to anyone that they will help us, being that in 1942 an order was given that anyone that tries to help a Jew and they are found, not only the Jew will be killed, but also the non-Jew that tried to help. Doctor and his wife Anna decided to place us in their potato silo, a hole below ground, camouflaged with wood, branches, and leaves. This was the only way we could be hidden with no one to find us. The silo was so small, and because of my 4-year-old size, I was the only one to be able to stand up. The rest of my family had to be on their knees. We were ridden with fear not to move and make noise. It was dark in the silo. We only saw a ray of sun or snowflakes coming through the branches. There was barely enough to lay down and sleep, so we laid next to each other like sardines in a can, side by side. My father told me over and over again not to cry and not to talk loud, being afraid that it might arouse and some people that are passing by. What a powerful message for a 4-year-old to listen and above all to follow it, even though she is hungry, afraid, and in pain. In the silo, we held hands, prayed in Hebrew and Yiddish, and counted each day of our survival. No one can imagine how at this young age I was able to cope day after day. There were no games to play, no bedtime story, and no mother to hug you when you are in pain or afraid. And my father was very sick. It was a miracle that we didn't go insane. We attributed to the help from God, our prayers, and the stamina of my uncle, a man with an iron will. In Hebrew, we call it a gibor, like the rock of Gibraltar, that kept our spirit alive and builded up our hope. Mrs. Luchinsky, is there a problem? Mrs. Luchinsky and Uncle Ben cooperated in feeding the family. She decided she will boil some potatoes and make some boiled water like bouillon and leave it hidden by the farm. Late at night, Uncle Ben came out picked up the two pots, brought it back into the silo, and divided it in very small portions, since it had to last for many days. My father, being very religious, studying to be a rabbi, refused to drink and eat because he kept the strict kosher laws, even though my uncle told him that when somebody is sick and needs survival, it postpones anything. In Hebrew we say, pikuach nefesh doche akol. But my father didn't want to. Months went by of hunger, deprivation, and lack of sanitation, never bathing and never changing clothes. We were ridden with lice and came down with respiratory illness. We began to regret the ghetto, leaving the ghetto, and questioning the whereabouts the rest of our family. Our so-called toilet was a metal pot like a helmet that a soldier wears, and we used it for our bodily function. Late at night, Uncle Ben crawled out, went deeper in the forest, dug an opening, and threw the body function and covered it so to assure that no patrol person or dog can smell the bodily function. A year after being in the silo under such severe condition, Uncle Ben became very sick, to the point that he couldn't swallow even a teaspoon of water. Again, Dr. Luchinsky and his son became the heroes. And late at night, he took him out to his farm and treated him with his knowledge of being a doctor. He took Dr. Luchinsky and his son 10 days to do it. During this time, my father prayed and said, "Dear Lord, if you have to take one of us, please take me and not Uncle Ben, the leader of the group. Because if he goes, for sure, we as well will not be here." About 2 weeks after my uncle's recuperation, my father died. He died in the silo, and the time the ground was frozen and they couldn't dig an opening to bury him. So he laid in the dark silo for 7 days. And me at that time being 5 years old, I didn't know because they didn't want to tell me. So I cuddled up next to his body, covered him and me with my blanket, and prayed to God to help him, not knowing that because his skin was so cold that he was dead, and all of our skin was cold. During these 7 days, Dr. Luchinsky and his son boiled water and every night went deeper in the forest by a tree and softened the ground of the area. After 7 days, when the ground was softer, Uncle Ben and Dr. Luchinsky took my father out and buried him in an opening. At that time, Uncle Ben placed a sign by the tree and vowed, if we survive, he'll come back to this area and reclaim my father's remains and bring him back to our town cemetery and bury him in the Jewish cemetery under strict Jewish laws. This life of scarcely being alive went on for 22 months and 3 days. Yes, almost 2 years. When in 1944, the Russians were able to liberate us. We were all ill and swollen from starvation. But what a wonderful feeling to come out and see a little light after so much darkness. The Russians tried to give us a little food, but of course we could not digest it after so long of starvation. They wanted to take us to the Russian border, at which time Uncle Ben did not want to, because he wanted to go back to Semyatic. So they led us off at the area, wished us good luck, gave us a little money, and then my uncle in the distance saw a Polish acquaintance with a horse and wagon and begged them to try and drive us back to our town, since we were unable to walk, especially my aunt and me. When we arrived to Semyatic, our homes were occupied by Polish families, and being that my uncle and the family were so sick and weak and afraid, they did not reclaim the properties. We learned at the same time from Polish people that knew our families that my mother, sister, grandfather, aunts, uncle, and their children wended up in the Treblinka and guessed. Now I am a 6-year-old orphan. My heart ached. I did not possess enough tears to cry. I felt I didn't deserve to to be punished, since I did not misbehave, but I could not question at this moment. With the help of the Jewish agency, the Sochnut, we settled in and became healthier physically, mentally, and emotionally. At that time, Uncle Ben and his older son Shlomo, with a horse and wagon, went back to the farm, to the area where by the tree, where he found, yes, the symbol to indicate where my father was buried. He retrieved the remains and brought him back to Semyatic and reburied him under strict Jewish laws in the Jewish cemetery. While in Semyatic, for 6 months, Uncle Ben made plans to leave Poland and commence our trek to Israel, that time Palestine, of course. We were divided. My aunt and 2 sons and me went to Romania, and my uncle and 2 cousin girls went to Italy. From there, we arrived in 1945 to, at that time, still Palestine. My mother's uncle, Mr. Herman Bush, living at that time in United States of America, found out that I survived and came and decided to bring me back to United States for more opportunity, education, and other help. I, in the beginning, did not want to leave because my aunt, uncle, and their children were like parents and sisters and brothers to me. But they told me, take a chance, you can always come back. And I did take a chance and arrived here in 1955. It took my uncle, by the way, 7 years to get a visa for me to the United States. I finished my last 2 years of high school, Advanced Steuben High School in Chicago, and yes, as I told you in the beginning, I entered Cook County School of Nursing to become a nurse with a definite purpose in it. My survival can be attributed to the righteousness of the extraordinary Luchinsky family, acting upon their prevailing sense of humanity, putting their lives and those of their children at risk. Also due to my Uncle Ben, that always thought only positive. The past, the challenges, and the obstacles that I had to overcome made me definitely a stronger and more tolerant individual, one who has faith, yes, that there is a God who watches us all. And I must share an example why I say it. After the first year being in the silo, Mrs. Luchinsky walked out from her farmhouse with 2 buckets full of porridge to feed the pigs on the farm. As she looked a little distant, she saw a German with a dog crossing close to the silo. She right away thought, dropped the porridge, the dog smelled it and ran toward it, and she purposely fell on the ground, and the German patrolman that knew Dr. Luchinsky ran over, picked her up, and brought her back to the farm. If this is not a miracle from God, I sure would not be standing here now and telling you all that. I must also tell you that I am proud that I have now at our Holocaust Museum in Skokie, Illinois, which I wish you all have a chance to visit, like Daryl and her husband had the opportunity. And there I have a bench in memory of my parents and sister. This bench is not only for me to sit and meditate, but it replaces the graves that I cannot visit because there were none to memorialize them. My blanket that I have, I donated permanently to the museum as well. And it's in the ghetto section. And to prove that that is my permanent link between me and my family that perished. When I talk mainly to the young generation, I must emphasize some very important points. Number one, they must remember that they are the last generation, as your wonderful instructor Daryl said, that will be able to interview a real life survivor. Therefore, it is incumbent upon them to share my presentation as well as many other ones to their generation and future generation, so nobody ever forgets, as we say it, to tell medor ledor, from generation to generation. Everybody must know that the Holocaust did not start with the gas chambers, but it started with discrimination, verbal and physical bullying. So you must always make a commitment to take a stand with me to fight intolerance of any sort. You must do so by being strong, proud, and determined to do so. Remember that you all, young, old, middle-aged, have a purpose in this world to be kind to one another. As I said here, what you see, a kind word, a gentle touch, and a warm smile goes a long way and replaces many medicines that are costly. I want to also share with everyone that last year Holocaust survivors were invited in Chicago to attend a luncheon given by the museum from Washington, D.C. And then we were given out a puzzle. And guess what? A very meaningful puzzle. I went right away, put it together, and guess what it says? Never again. What you do matters. And I always ask, when you see that puzzle, you see different colors, different shapes, and different sayings. And it's so important to learn from this how to stand against bullying and hurting one another. I am so very proud to have had the opportunity to be here, and I would like to share one very important thing. It was my daughter Simona that encouraged me after my major heart attack to open up my deep-seated capsule of silence for 32 years and start sharing it. And believe me, I'm proud to say, once my mouth opened, it never shuts up. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I thank you. I am so proud to be here, really. Thank you. Oh,
You are so unbelievable. I can't even.
oh my God.
What can I say about that? Wow. We're going to do a question and answer session now. So if you have a question, I'll try to see you and call on you, and then I'm going to repeat the question so that everybody can hear it. And then...
May I ask one question first?
Please do.
I'm sorry. I would like to give a little more spiritual, not so sad question. if I have a choice from any one of you between a steak or a potato, what do you think my choice would be?
Let's all guess. A steak.
It is, thank you, because not having a steak, I don't know ever, but it's still the potato, my symbol of survival in any form. Mashed potatoes, paper, or anything. Thank you.
Okay, now the audience gets their turn. Okay, she wants to know when Uncle Ben died and if you ever got to see the other family members after you came to the United States.
In Israel, yes. I had the opportunity when, again, not only one that loved him like a father, but as a nurse, to visit him when he was very sick. And he lived for several years afterward. So I did see him. And now both my aunt, uncle, and one of the 4 cousins passed away. But I am very much in communication with the wonderful nowadays, what do you call it on the computer? Skype, thank you. Skype, and telephone. So we communicate.
Wonderful.
And one of them always tells me, and I must repeat, we pray to God every day that to keep you strong and healthy to carry the message for us as well. So I am doing it.
Beautiful. Other questions? Beautiful. She's saying that she knows it had to be so difficult when her mother wrapped her in the blanket and handed her to her father, and how sad that whole thing was with the loss of her mother. And she's wondering what it was like when your daughter was born.
Very good question. I continuously couldn't stop overprotecting her, over-loving her till today. I am proud to say so. And it was a very sad, because I kept that blanket in a pillowcase for 32 years and only looked at it daily myself till I was interviewed after 32 years by Steven Spielberg's group.
And now when you go to the Illinois Holocaust Museum, you can see her blanket. It's on display. It's very touching. Right here, right? Yes. Anybody else have a question? Way back. What color was your blanket?
It was like beige and with fringes, as you can see here if you have a chance. And there are also some not perfect match colors that my father tried to mend while in the dark silo. Very good.
Yeah. Have you ever returned to the farmhouse or that general area?
I have here a picture opening to the silo, and that was taken in 1957 when one of my cousins in Israel and her husband went back to visit, and they took the picture that's still there and sent some clothes and money to the Luchinskis in appreciation. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question over here. Great question. Sue wants to know, how did you explain your experience to your daughter, Simona?
As I said, for 32 years, she never knew about it. The first time she heard it was when she was 32 and expecting her firstborn, and I was interviewed by the group of Steven Spielberg. She was a little angry why I never, and rightfully so, but I could not inflict that pain on her at that given time. However, to your question, when I decided to give my blanket permanently to the museum, I asked my two young grandsons, Eli and Zev, at that time, maybe 9 and 12, should I save it or give it permanently? And I'm proud for them because they know my survival now. They said, we can always come and see it and remember it. We want you to give it so the whole world sees what happened.
That's beautiful. Oh, yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, next.
Were the Luczynskis ever recognized at Yad Vashem as among the righteous Gentiles?
Yes.
Were the Luczynskis ever recognized at Yad Vashem as righteous Gentiles?
In fact, I'm proud to say when Daryl visited with Marv, her husband, at the museum, she took a picture of me pointing to the plaque by the permanent wall for righteous among nations, naming Dr. and Mrs. Luczynski and the family. And we got that permission through Yad Vashem that has it as well. Thank you.
Is there anybody upstairs with a question? Is there anybody still alive today besides you that was in the silo?
Yeah, I did mention to one of your members here that I still proudly have 3 surviving cousins in Israel. They are much older than me, and their children and grandchildren. So there are still 3 from my cousins that are there.
What is your biggest motivation in life, like to keep going? What keeps you going? What's your greatest?
To help one another in time of need and prevent future hate and discrimination and bigotry in the world.
We are going by, you know where the box office is, that's where Cipora will be. We have books there. We have a limited number of books that have her story, along with other survivors that are active in the Illinois Holocaust Museum. It's a beautiful book. She will be sitting at a table and she'll sign the books and she'll also sign programs. And of course we have refreshments. And I have one more announcement. WKBT, our local Channel 8 CBS, is going to rebroadcast this Cipora's message. So if you know someone who couldn't come tonight, it'll be rebroadcast on Sunday night, April 13th at 11:05 p.m. And you all know how to tape shows if you don't want to stay up that late. So let's have one more rousing hand for Cipora.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love that.
Thank you. We'll see you in the buy the box office. You buy the books in the lobby, by the way.